I stopped by my son-in-law's restaurant that afternoon, thinking it would be a simple visit, maybe a quick hello, and a warm meal together. Instead, I saw my daughter sitting in the back, quietly eating leftovers from someone else's plate. When I asked him why, he didn't lower his voice or soften his words. He just looked at me and said, "She deserves it." In that moment, I realized there were things happening in my daughter's marriage that I had never been allowed to see. If this story touches something familiar in your heart, you're welcome to support the channel by liking and subscribing, and stay with me as I share what happened next. I didn't plan to stay long that day. I was just passing through the neighborhood and thought it might be nice to surprise my daughter at her husband's restaurant. I imagined us sharing a meal, laughing the way we used to, even if only for a few minutes. Instead, what I walked into felt like a quiet scene I wasn't meant to witness, one that made my chest tighten before I fully understood why. I'm 62 years old, and like many mothers my age, I still carry a habit of worrying silently. My daughter had always been independent, stubborn in a way that reminded me of myself when I was younger. When she married, I told myself to step back. She had chosen her life, her partner, her future. I respected that, even when something in my gut told me she was carrying more than she let on. The restaurant was busy near the front, filled with voices and clinking plates. But in the back, near the kitchen, I saw her sitting alone. She wasn't eating from the menu. She was finishing what looked like leftovers, scraping the plate carefully, as if trying not to waste anything. She didn't notice me at first. When she did, her face shifted quickly, surprise followed by something that looked too much like shame. I asked her quietly if everything was all right. Before she could answer, her husband appeared. He didn't seem embarrassed or defensive. When I questioned him, trying to keep my voice calm, he shrugged and said she needed to learn her place, that this was how things worked in his restaurant. Then, without hesitation, he said the words that stayed with me long after I left. He said she deserved it. I felt something crack inside me, not loudly but deeply. I looked at my daughter, waiting for her to protest, to laugh it off, to tell me I was misunderstanding. She didn't. She kept her eyes down and continued eating, as if this was normal. That hurt more than his words. It told me this wasn't a bad day or a misunderstanding. This was routine. On the drive home, memories surfaced that I had pushed aside for too long. Her canceled visits. The way she always insisted everything was fine. The careful tone she used whenever she talked about her marriage. I realized how often I had accepted her silence as strength, when it might have been fear. I had raised her to be capable, to stand on her own, but I had also taught her to endure. I wondered if that lesson had gone too far. If she believed love meant tolerating disrespect. If my own choices had shaped her willingness to stay quiet. That night, I barely slept. I replayed the scene again and again, questioning what I should have done differently. I wondered whether confronting him would only make things worse for her. I wondered whether stepping in would mean crossing a line I had promised myself I wouldn't cross. Being a mother to an adult child often means choosing between watching silently and risking being pushed away. By morning, one thing was clear. I could no longer pretend this was none of my business. What I had seen wasn't just about a plate of leftovers. It was about dignity, control, and a marriage that felt unbalanced in ways that frightened me. I didn't yet know how I would act, or what the consequences would be, but I knew this was a moment that demanded attention, even if it meant unsettling a fragile peace. The next few days passed in a blur of restless thoughts and quiet phone calls that went unanswered. I tried to give my daughter space, but the image of her sitting alone in that restaurant stayed with me. It wasn't the leftovers that haunted me. It was the way she accepted them, as if she had learned not to expect more. I knew then that waiting for her to ask for help might mean waiting forever. I invited her to my home for dinner, just the two of us. I didn't frame it as a serious talk. I told her I missed her cooking, her laugh, the way she used to fill a room without trying. When she arrived, she looked tired, thinner than I remembered. As we ate, I spoke gently, careful not to criticize her husband outright. I told her what I saw, how it made me feel, and that no matter what, she deserved respect. At first, she defended him. She said he was under pressure, that restaurants were hard businesses, that she needed to contribute more. But her voice wavered, and eventually the words slowed. She admitted that the comments, the small humiliations, had become common. Eating leftovers wasn't a punishment, she said. It was a reminder of her place. Hearing that felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I asked her if she felt safe. She hesitated before answering yes, and that hesitation told me more than words ever could. I didn't tell her what to do. I didn't demand she leave. Instead, I told her she always had a room in my home, no questions asked. I told her that needing help wasn't failure. It was clarity. What happened next didn't unfold quickly. Change rarely does when pride and fear are tangled together. But small shifts began. She started spending more time with me. She took a short break from the restaurant. Her husband noticed, and his tone changed, not softer but sharper. When he called me to accuse me of interfering, I stayed calm. I told him that respect wasn't optional, and silence was no longer something I would offer. Eventually, my daughter made the decision herself. She didn't leave in anger or drama. She left quietly, with a suitcase, and a resolve I hadn't seen in her for years. She said she needed time to remember who she was before she learned to make herself smaller. Watching her walk through my door that night, I felt both relief and grief, knowing the road ahead would be difficult but necessary. Now, months later, she is rebuilding. Slowly, imperfectly, but with honesty. She eats full meals again, laughs without checking who is listening, and speaks without apology. I don't know what the future holds for her marriage. That choice is hers. What I do know is that dignity should never be earned through suffering. Looking back, I understand that being a parent doesn't end when your child grows up. It changes. Sometimes it means standing quietly. Other times it means standing firmly. That day at the restaurant taught me that love, at its core, is not about endurance. It's about ensuring the people you care for never forget their worth.